Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. This is the weekly report for the week of January 12th, and we'll get into river conditions, and we'll talk about some of the lake conditions that are around you. As you guys probably have figured out, there's not a lot of reports coming in. The river's pretty much blown out, so not going on right now. I will say that these storms will pass through, and maybe in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it takes, when the river starts coming into back into fishability, we're going to be out there, and the fishing is going to be good. And I'd like to talk about, at the end of the report, some of the things that I'm going to be doing when I get back on the river, some of the baits I'm going to be using, and some of the techniques that I'll be using. And for you guys that have been through this before, you might want to send me a comment and let me know what you're thinking about doing, when you get back on the river. So with that, we'll get into the report. I want to start off by giving a shout out to Bill Jennings. Bill passed away about 10 days ago, and most of you guys wouldn't recognize Bill's name. You wouldn't recognize his face. He's a conservationist. He is a fisherman, but primarily Bill was a conservationist, and for the last 40 years, Bill he is the OG when it comes to protecting the Delta, and he's the guy that has been at every water board meeting. He's bumped heads with all the politicians. He's bumped heads with the big money water grabbers that have tried to divert water from the Delta. So we all owe Bill much gratitude when it comes to protecting the Delta. And I'd just like to go through a few of the things that Bill has been involved with and some of the awards that he has had, and he definitely needs to be acknowledged. So Bill was the original Delta keeper. He co-founded Restore the Delta. He is a past president of the California Striped Bass Association, past executive director of the California Sport Fishing Alliance. He was awarded the International Conservation Award from the Federation of Fly Fishermen. He was awarded the Director's Achievement Award from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Was awarded the Conservation Award from the American Fisheries Society. He was voted the Californian of the Year by the Outdoor Writers Association. He was voted the Fly Fisher of the Year by the Delta Fly Fisher. And this is just a sliver of what Bill has done over the years. So he will be greatly missed, and I'm just hoping that there is some young guy or girl out there that can follow in Bill's shoes and maybe pick up, on the good fight for keeping our water here in the Delta and keeping the Delta clean and fishable and fun for everybody to be on. So, okay, with that, we'll get into some business, and the ISE show coming up January 19th through the 22nd. That's the Sacramento International Sportsman's Exposition. I will be there all 4 days at the Fisherman's Warehouse booth, so if you're there, come by and say hi. I'd love to talk to you guys. Let's get right into some river reports and some lake reports. Let's talk about some of the lakes and how they're filling up here in Northern California. And I'm going to give you, for the next couple weeks, not only the percentage of the average lake level for the prior week and for the current week, so you guys can see just how they're filling up. So this is the first week we're talking about it. We won't have the prior week, but next week I'll give you how these guys are filling up. So we're talking about the average percent, not the capacity level. So Shasta is at 70%, Oroville 88%, Folsom is at 99%, but Folsom's a little different animal. Folsom is actually dropping right now, and the reason it's dropping is because they have to open up the dam to relieve the water out of the lake. It's already at 99%, so they're letting water out. It's dropping because they know how much water is coming down, and it's going to fill up again. So I think Folsom will probably be close to 100%, through the rest of the season. Hopefully it winds up at 100%. Berryessa is 77. New Melones is 56. Clear Lake is a little different also. Clear Lake is judged on the Rumsey scale, and the reason being is that the lakes we just talked about, they're all dammed and their water flood, they're meant for flood control. Clear Lake is a natural lake, and the Rumsey scale goes from like, basically 1 to 10, we'll just say. Right now it's at 142. And the lake level that we're really looking for as fishermen is probably around 4 to 6 feet. That's the level for you guys that have fished it for a while, maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago, when it's not flood level, but all the docks have water underneath them. You've got 4, 5, 6 feet of water under some of those docks. You can get in there and fish all the docks and everything. And just for historical purposes, the highest that Clear Lake has ever been was back in 1890, and that is 13 on the Rumsey scale. The lowest was at -3.5, and that was in 1920. So right there between, I'll say 4 and 6 on the Rumsey scale is where we're hoping that Clear Lake gets to. Right now it's 1.4. The water's rising. They're going to get a lot of water coming in. So man, it's looking really good for Clear Lake right now. So that's the local or Northern California lakes. And like I said, next week I'll give you those reports, and you could see, I'll give you the prior week and the current week, so you can see just how much they're raising. All right, let's get into the Delta report. I'll start off by, you guys looked at or saw the aerial video of the Delta on the beginning of the report. I'd like to thank my buddy Russ for flying over and taking those videos for me. And I think Russ is going to be out there as long as weather permitting, week to week, and maybe he'll send me some more of those aerial reports so we can see, what the Delta is doing and how it's drying out. So thanks a lot, Russ. Let's get into the Delta and the report. There's no reports. Nobody's been on the water, and they probably shouldn't have been on the water. It's just too nasty and too high out there right now. I know the last tournament that I know of was just after the first of the year. I think it was a NorCal tournament. 23 boats. I think 11 or 12 pounds won it with 3 fish, and one of those fish was a 5-pound kicker. After that, there's been nothing going on, so it's changing. The river will be changing for the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, depending on what the storms do as they come in and how much water dumps into the river. I want to say, and I'm going to show a little bit of video footage that I was out at Paradise Point this morning, and what we're seeing right now is the point at Paradise. And you can tell the water's very high. At this point, it's not at high tide, but we're going out to the end of the dock, and I want to show you that sign that's the 5 mile an hour sign, and you can see at this point right now the water level is about a couple feet below the bottom of that sign. I talked to Jessica this morning, who is working out at Paradise Point. She's in the office out there. And she said that a couple of days ago at high tide, the water level was all the way up to the mid level of the sign, probably 4 to 5 feet higher than what it is, what you're seeing in this short video that I took this morning. So that gives you guys a good idea of how high the water has been in the Delta. And for me, I look at Bear Creek all the time because I live on Bear Creek, and boy, it is just pushing brown chocolate water into the system. I know that the Calaveras is doing the same. Everything up north is pushing into the Delta, and it's going to be a mess out there for a while. I would not be surprised if they put some boating restrictions on the river, and it might not be a bad idea. I don't think anybody needs to be out there right now. And what happens is, especially for, bass boats, cruisers, I know nobody's out there skiing in the big wake boats, but the boats that put a lot of wave action on the bank at high tide, it helps to really erode these banks. And what we don't want to do is have breaks in the levees and have the farms flooded and this, that, and the other thing. So I will say, if you guys hear, make sure before you go out on the Delta that there are no boating restrictions, and if they are, they're to save the Delta. And all this water coming into the lakes and the Delta is going to be good for the rivers. It's pushing nutrients into the rivers and lakes. I guarantee you on the Delta, for you guys that think, well, what's going to happen to all these bass? What are they doing? Are they getting pushed down the river with all this water coming in? Are we going to be fishing for bass out in, San Francisco Bay? No. The bass are hunkered down. They're doing fine. They're feeding, as much as they need to feed, and they're going to be ready to come out and play when it comes time to, get out and start fishing in the spring. they're going to be out there and they're going to be ready to go. We're going to have a great year of fishing, but it's not going to be in the next couple of weeks. And we also have to think about, it's not only the water coming in to the system from everywhere in the rain and the runoff, but a lot of the farmers are starting to pump water out of their islands. And not that they have breaks in the islands where it's flooding the islands, but they're just getting full of rain and filling up just like a swimming pool would be filled up. So they're pumping a lot of dirty water out of the islands. They'll be pumping that for probably a week or so, depending on what's coming out. And it's going to be a mess out there. When I was out this morning, we had maybe 2-3 inches of water visibility. Just not worth going out there. I wouldn't suggest that anybody go out there. There's going to be a lot of debris floating down. If you are out there, I always think if I see debris on top, and however much debris I'm seeing on top of the water, there's probably that much under the water that I'm not seeing that may be a navigational hazard for boating. So I would highly recommend staying off the rivers, at least the San Joaquin Delta. If you need to get out fishing, try one of the lakes. Make sure you call before, and make sure the roads aren't closed getting up. But right now is not the best time to be out there. That being said, what am I going to do when I, maybe in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, when I get out there and start fishing? Number one, I'm going to still pay close attention to moon phases, because I want to know when there's a lot of lunar activity. I want to know when my best time to be out there, when the fish are going to be active, and I'm going to pay close attention to tides. I'm probably going to want to be fishing some incoming tides, because the outgoing tides, with all the water pushing through and the tide pulling, they're going to be super fast tides, very hard to fish in. So I'm going to think about fishing the incoming tides. We're not going to have to worry about low tide, because we're going to have water that's up 3 or 4 foot higher than we normally have. So everything's going to be flooded. I think that's going to draw fish in close to the bank. I'm going to be throwing things like chatterbaits, bladed spinner baits. I'll be throwing A-rigs, something that has a lot of a lot of vibration that will draw fish in, and enough flash so that the fish can come in, and once they get close to the bait, that little bit of flash may draw them closer to whatever bait I'm throwing. If I can find fish with those reaction type baits, I may try to slow down, and my bait of choice is going to be a jig, and I'll probably be throwing a jig with a rattle on it, and I will make sure I've got a lot of scent on that, so that if I can get that jig close to a fish, maybe that rattle and the scent will help bring that fish in and fish closer to my bait and help them grab that bait. With that being said, it's going to be tough the next 3 or 4 weeks, and I want to say that I really appreciate you guys staying with me on these reports. I know a lot of you guys aren't out there fishing, but I appreciate you supporting the channel. And I can tell you, it's going to get better. We're going to have a heck of a spring once this water gets down the rivers. It's going to be a new river. We're going to have to find some new areas to find these fish. Maybe your old spots may not be what they were last year, but you're going to find new spots, and these fish are going to be ready to go. Believe me. So thank you guys for showing up every week, and I'll see you guys next week. And I hope I have a better report for you. Good luck and stay safe.